Hi, I'm coming across an article that was written back in May 19th of 2019. It was on Seattle's fair housing law, and they're saying it's the most progressive in the country, but now landlords are challenging it. And the reason they're challenging it is because that there was a law passed by the state of Washington back in 1981 that prohibits any orange. I'm sorry about that. It prohibits any landlords and property owners. It prohibits the city from enacting any kind of rent restrictions or any kind of penalties for raising the rent too high. And I can kind of understand that, because this is the state's way of thinking, that if you own private property and you rent it, the city shouldn't be allowed to tell you what you can and can't charge for it. But when you have predominantly more non-affordable housing than you do affordable housing, for some odd reason the city of Seattle is not the city of Seattle is not they don't have enough affordable housing that's public housing. That's the term I'm thinking of. They don't have enough public housing. 99% of all of the housing in Seattle is for profit, and then I'm all for profit, I am. But when you neglect the poor people for the sake of profit just because you can, that's not good. That's something that I don't agree with. Now, I don't believe that a person should be forced to lower their rent. I think they should have a choice. But I also think that the city should work with the housing developers. And I've talked about this time and time again, and I've said that there's not enough affordable housing in Seattle. And if you want to get permits, and you have to get them from the city, you can't just start building. You have to get the permits from the city. I think the city of Seattle should work out a deal with the developers that for every 3 apartment complexes, or for every 3 rental properties you build, for every 3 for-profit rental properties that you build, you should build the city 3 rental properties that the city can use for public housing. And upon doing that, the city should work out a deal with the developers to make it worth their while to do so, because it takes money to make money. I get that. And you need money to be able to make things work. And the city it seems almost as if Seattle wants to be rich, and they want everybody else to be pushed out. The poor and the low income and the destitute, they want all of them pushed out, and they want nothing but rich folks in the town in Seattle. Seattle didn't used to be that way. It says here, Christopher Poulos, Poulos, was offered the chance to work for the Obama administration for his 3rd year of law school, during his 3rd year of law school in 2015. Although he had previously been convicted of a federal felony, he was eventually able to gain the top secret eligible national security position clearance required for the position. Okay, he was convicted of a federal felony. It doesn't say exactly. He tried to rent an apartment. Okay, I see where this is going now. Yeah, he tried to rent an apartment, but because he had a felony, It was a federal felony at that. He was unable to find a place to live. He said, I could not secure shelter to work for the president, he said. Even with all the clearances, the fact that I was licensed in Maine to practice law as a student attorney, as soon as I checked off yes on that criminal history box, I became immediately ineligible for housing. Now, Polos is the executive director of the Washington State Reentry Council. He aims to introduce statewide legislation in 2020 to help others with criminal histories secure stable housing, modeled on Seattle's Fair Chance Housing Ordinance. The Seattle law prevents landlords from running criminal background checks when evaluating tenant applications. Polos and other fair housing advocates will be closely watching the outcome of a lawsuit filed by Pacific Legal Foundation on behalf of several Seattle landlords in May 2018. The suit, which will come before the Washington State Supreme Court in June, argues that Seattle's Fair Chance Housing Ordinance denies landlords the right to access public records and violates the Due Process Clause of the Washington State and United States Constitution. The ordinance is one of the most far-reaching fair housing laws in the country. As far as we could tell, this law was the most progressive that had been passed by any jurisdiction in the country, said Nick Straley, attorney at Columbia Legal Services, which will be filing an amicus brief in Washington State Supreme Court in support of the ordinance. The making of the Seattle Fair Chance Housing Ordinance. One of the goals of the ordinance was to help address radical disparities in access to housing, as criminal background checks have the greatest impact on people of color. In 2018, African Americans made up 6.8% of the overall population and 36.8% of the prison population in Seattle's King County. And that's just not Seattle. There's a large percentage that make up a lot of the United States that's in the prison systems. Michelle Clendon was one of the advocates behind Seattle's ordinance. She is passionate about increasing access to housing for formerly incarcerated individuals due to her own experience with the criminal justice system while working full-time as a medical assistant and going to nursing school. She got a DUI after taking a sleep aid to help with insomnia. That changed my entire life, McClendon said, who works as a reentry specialist at a local community college. I sat in jail for 5 months, so I lost everything. She should have sued for wrongful imprisonment because she wasn't charged, or she was not found guilty, and she was not given a speedy trial. Like Polos, she was unable to find housing because of her criminal record. There are laws and policies that are in place that prevent us from being successful people, Clendon said. McClendon also, her answer to the problem, get the policies and the laws changed. She channeled her efforts into getting the Fair Chance Housing Ordinance passed. I had to figure out a way how to give back so that other people who don't necessarily have that voice might have something to stand on. I refuse to be labeled as anything other than what I am, which is a productive member of society. And that is very true, because a lot of times people end up going to jail, whether it's their fault, no fault, whatever. They pay their debt to society, as the court puts it. They've done their time, they get out, and they're still paying their debt. The public comes at them. The city comes at them. Landlords come at them. And I get it. Some people that have been in jail are horrific, horrible people and deserve to be there. But there's also a lot of people that make simple, stupid mistakes that end up doing time, and they pay for it for the rest of their lives. Now, I want to ask this of you. How many of you out there have went through that same situation where you have had, you've went to jail over something petty or stupid? You made a mistake when you were younger, but you're still paying for it years later. You can't find an apartment. People look down on you for job applications and so on. That's really things that really screw up, and it's like you pay your debt until you get in trouble again. People should just consider the fact that you paid your debt. I mean, when God forgives us of our sins, He doesn't hold those sins above us or over us. They're gone. He forgets them. Now, if we go back and do the same thing again, that's a total different story. But as soon as we ask forgiveness for that sin, God no longer remembers that sin. It is no longer there. It is gone. When you get out of jail for something that you did that was dumb, or whether you made a mistake due to the fact that you needed to pay your rent or whatever the issue may be, you did something dumb and you ended up in jail, and now you've got that lingering over your head for almost the rest of your life. If you've had that kind of problem, leave a comment in the bottom and explain how you dealt with it. Let us know what you think. Like and subscribe this video. I need your help. I'm trying to get my videos off the ground. Let me know what you think, how I can make things better. I'm doing this because I care, not because I'm just got a lot of free time on my hands. I want to do this as a full-time, and it's hard for me to do this when I can't figure out what people like. I'm trying to educate, entertain, and enlighten. I'm trying to help people get in gear for something that's better for them in their life. Anyway, like and subscribe to the video if you haven't already. Put a comment down at the bottom and let me know what you think. Let me know your experiences. We can chit-chat about it. I answer all the answers. I'll answer all the posted question. If you're going to hit the down button at the top, please leave a message and say why, whether it's your videos were crap or whatever. If you want to stay anonymous, that's totally cool, but please don't just dislike my video just because that's what you do to every video. It's not polite, and I don't really care for it. But anyway, this has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Thank you very much, and have a good one.